Have you ever hauled a massive, beautiful watermelon all the way home, sliced it open in your kitchen, and found it, well, completely bland and tasteless? It's literally the worst. But what if I told you the secret to never wasting your money on a disappointing melon again actually comes down to acoustic physics and a little bit of botany? Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're putting an end to that whole grocery store guessing game. We are going to build the ultimate science-backed toolkit for finding the absolute perfect watermelon every single time.
So let's start with a question that trips up almost everyone. If you buy an underripe watermelon, will it get sweeter if you just leave it sitting on your kitchen counter for a few days? The definitive, absolute answer here is no, never. And that's because watermelons are what botanists call non-climacteric fruits. Now, unlike bananas, apples, or tomatoes, the ones that will keep converting starches into sugars after they're picked, a watermelon's quality is permanently locked in the exact second it gets severed from the vine. There is zero enzymatic conversion of starches happening post-harvest. Once it's picked, its respiration slows right down, and the sugar content stays completely static. So if a commercial grower picks a melon a week too early, it will never, ever sweeten up in your kitchen. That means identifying peak physiological maturity right there in the produce aisle? Yeah, that's completely on you.
So here is the agenda for how we're going to train your senses today. We'll cover visual clues for perfect ripeness, tactile tests covering weight and webbing, the science of the thump, debunking common watermelon myths, and finally, grower secrets and final tips.
Okay, Section 1, Visual Clues for Perfect Ripeness. Let's start with sight.
The very first thing you want to look at is the field spot, which is also known as the belly spot. This is literally just the place where the watermelon rested on the ground in the field. You're looking for a large, creamy, buttery yellow spot. The bigger and more golden that spot is, the longer the melon sat on the ground accumulating all those delicious sugars. If that spot is pale, white, or light green, it was harvested way too early. Just put it back.
Next up, check out the overall texture of the rind. Now, human instinct totally tells us to pick the shiniest, most beautiful fruit we can find, right? But with watermelons, you actually want a dull, matte finish. A shiny or glossy rind is actually a major red flag that the melon is underripe. A dull skin signals full maturity and optimal cutin wax deposition on the outside. So remember, you want a matte melon.
There are a couple of other visual signs of sweetness you should definitely hunt for. First, look for webbing or sugar spots. These are those rough, pale brown, web-like scars on the rind. And while they might look like the melon is damaged, they actually indicate heavy bee pollination of the flower. And more pollination generally correlates with much better fruit quality and sweetness. Next is the two-finger trick for striped varieties. Those dark green striations should be about the thickness of your index and middle fingers combined. And finally, if you happen to be a home gardener, check the tendril. That's the little curly pigtail closest to the fruit on the vine. If it's green, leave it. If it's brown and totally dried up, it's harvest time.
Moving on to Section 2, Tactile Tests, Weight, and Webbing. So the visuals are covered. Now let's talk about what you should feel.
You absolutely want to do the lift test. When you pick up the watermelon, it should feel incredibly heavy for its size. Honestly, almost like a dead weight. This tells you it has a really high water content and excellent juiciness. But I do have to warn you here. Weight alone isn't a perfect predictor. A waterlogged, over-irrigated melon can weigh 20% more than a perfectly balanced one, but actually have significantly less sugar. So just make sure you use the lift test in combination with the visual cues we just talked about.
All right, Section 3, the science of the thump. This is where we turn grocery store folklore into verifiable acoustic physics. People really love to thump watermelons, right? But most of us do it completely wrong because we're just listening for a basic hollow sound. Well, according to university acoustic spectroscopy trials, yes, scientists actually studied this, we're basically tuning an instrument here. A perfectly ripe watermelon resonates at an optimal frequency of 110 to 125 hertz. Basically, you're listening for a deep, resonant bong with a medium sustain of about 0.6 to 0.9 seconds. That highly specific pitch indicates optimal turgor pressure, uniform water distribution, and a fully mature vascular structure inside. A sharp ping sound, that means it's underripe. And a dull, flat thud means it's overripe and mushy. So how do you actually execute the perfect thump without, bruising the merchandise? Step 1. Use your curled knuckles, not your soft fingertips. That minimizes damping the sound. Step 2, strike the melon right at its equator, its widest point in the middle, not near the stem or the blossom ends. And step 3, place your non-tapping hand flat on the exact opposite side of the melon.
When you thump it, you should feel a distinct, sustained pulse travel all the way through the fruit into your other hand. If you don't feel that vibration transfer, put it back. Let's hit section 4, debunking common watermelon myths. It's time to clear up some terrible advice that is just wasting your hard-earned money.
Let's rapid-fire debunk these. First up, smell the stem for ripeness. Okay, this works beautifully for cantaloupes, but it is completely false for watermelons. Watermelons emit practically zero volatile aromas after harvest. Honestly, if you smell something strong at the stem, FDA testing suggests it's actually microbial spoilage, not ripeness. Yuck. Next, redder flesh means sweeter. False. Color is purely genetically determined by lycopene versus beta-carotene. Some yellow-fleshed melons have incredibly high sugar content with absolutely zero red pigment. Third, a louder thump means it's riper. Also false. Volume just correlates to the size of the melon. A 20-pound melon is always going to be louder than a 10-pound one. Remember, listen for pitch, not volume. And finally, shake it to hear the seeds rattle. Please, whatever you do, don't do this. If the seeds are rattling around in there, it means the melon has severe internal dehydration and cavity formation. The whole thing is ruined.
Finally, section 5, grower secrets and final tips. Let's look at the hard science commercial growers use before these melons ever even hit the delivery truck. Commercial growers don't just rely on tapping. They use a precise measurement called Brix. Degrees Brix basically measures the percentage by weight of total soluble solids dissolved in the watermelon juice. Because sugar makes up the vast majority of those solids, Brix is the globally accepted, undeniable scientific measurement for internal sweetness. Growers will literally extract a few drops of juice right in the field and place it on a little device called a refractometer to measure exactly how much light bends through the sugar.
And this right here is the magic number they're desperately looking for, 10 to 11 degrees Brix. If the sample from the center of the field hits this mark, the entire field is generally considered good to go for harvest.
Now, the data clearly shows why this timing is so absolutely vital. Look at this massive drop-off from a recent blind taste panel study. When watermelons were harvested at 35 days or more post-flowering, meaning they achieved that optimal Brix, consumer acceptance was a staggering 92%. Pretty great, right? But when picked just 1 week earlier, at 28 days or less, acceptance plummeted to just 41%. Because watermelons are non-climacteric and won't ripen off the vine, jumping the gun on harvest means 60% of people will absolutely hate the fruit. Now, before we wrap up, just keep in mind that the different types of melons have slightly different physical rules. For seedless or triploid melons, the field spot might actually be pretty faint, so you'll want to rely heavily on webbing, and expect a slightly higher pitched thump because they have smaller internal cell cavities. For mini or personal-sized melons, the texture is often naturally smoother, and interestingly, a ripe one will feel uniquely cool to the touch, because mature flesh actually conducts heat slower. And for yellow flesh varieties, you're looking for an ivory belly spot, not a yellow one, and their thump frequency is surprisingly a bit lower.
Really quick, just an important disclaimer to keep in mind. While the physics and botany we discussed today are incredibly sound, nature is beautifully variable. Always consider local cultivar variations, the recent weather conditions where the fruit was grown, and of course, your own personal taste preferences. Some folks like crisper flesh, while others prefer it softer. And you know what? That's perfectly okay.
So, the next time you find yourself standing under those bright fluorescent lights in the produce aisle, staring down a literal mountain of green fruit, you have a choice to make. Are you going to pick your food based on outdated folklore? Or are you going to use your brand new scientific toolkit? Trust the yellow field spot. Look for that dull rind. Embrace the bee webbing and find that perfect 120 Hz resonance. Happy hunting.